Hi guys, welcome back to You've Got This. Today I'm going to be talking about the 16 essential kitchen utensils you need when you're stocking your kitchen. This is my motley crew of utensils. It's a mishmash. None of them are particularly fancy, but I feel like they're the most basic ones you need so that you can cook almost anything in your kitchen. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. These aren't really expensive items. They could be. I mean, you could buy everything from an expensive store and get the most high-end. You don't really need that. A lot of these, you're gonna see they're like a grocery store version, like probably this is. But, gather them. Yard sales, thrift stores, maybe the regular store if you see something you simply must have. But don't, you don't need to spend a ton of money on these things. They're just fine if they're cheap, all right? Pots and pans are more important to spend money on, and knives. But we'll talk about that in a minute. First thing you need, a vegetable peeler. A vegetable peeler. This isn't my favorite kind. I actually like the cheap rinky-dinky, just straight metal ones, but it was so ugly. I use this one. You peel vegetables and you use the tip to scoop out like the rotten parts of vegetables, like in a potato in particular. So you need that. Spatula. This is a super cheap spatula, but it's fine. I like it. And the reason I like it is, you see how thin this edge is? You want a very thin spatula. You don't want it to be floppy. It needs to be able to hold weight. And I've had floppy ones that were too floppy, but you don't want it to be a thick spatula, because you know what? You cannot get between the food and the pan when it's starting to stick if it's thick. You'll just chop up the bottom of your food. Like, let's say you have a potato pancake and you have a thick spatula, it'll just chop up the bottom and ruin it. Get a thin one, all right? Important. A slotted spoon. A slotted spoon is used for scooping food out of liquids. And so let's say you're making a bunch of green beans and you've boiled them up and you want to scoop them onto your plate. Then you pull them out with your slotted spoon, liquid drains away, and you've just got the food. Okay, so that's handy. A slotted spoon is important. This is a ladle. A ladle is used for scooping out like sauces, gravies, soups, stews, things like that. Nice big bottom to scoop up, make a bowl of soup. Measuring spoons. Measuring spoons, give you an accurate measurement for certain recipes. When you're cooking from scratch, which I hope you will, and it's not hard, and I'll show you all about it. This is a potato masher. The potato masher is good for all kinds of things, mostly for potatoes, but let's say you want to mash up a bunch of cooked squash, or you want to mash up, let's say you don't have a food processor or a blender and you want to make refried beans. You cook the beans, and when they're soft, you can just mash the heck out of them and make some really good refried beans. So a potato masher is good. These are tongs. Tongs are great for getting your corn on the cob out of the water. And likewise, if you're frying food, it's a nice way to do it securely without like splashing oil everywhere. So tongs are important. And if you have bigger tongs, like these are little, but for grilling, so that you can flip things when you're grilling them on the grill. A wooden spoon is nice. They don't get hot on your hand. And you can just keep them in the pot and leave them in there as your spaghetti sauce is boiling away or whatever it is you're making. So at least one wooden spoon. Usually they come in sets and they're pretty cheap to buy a set of them. But don't get the little tiny skinny ones. Get one that has a thicker handle. The skinny ones snap and break, the handle does. This is a whisk. A whisk is really great for like when you're whisking flour or cornstarch or something like that in, or any ingredient that you want to add to a sauce. A whisk is better than like a spoon or a fork for incorporating ingredients. It's very handy. And back in the day before people had blenders and hand mixers, you know, like in the French, they would sit there and whip up their whipped cream and stuff with things like this, which takes forever now, but you can use it for that. You're gonna need a can opener. Get one that's easy on the hands. Don't get just like the skinny metal ones, like the old-fashioned kind like I used to have, and it hurts your hands. But anyway, cheap old can opener's fine. Some sort of a grater, or this is a rasp, and this is great for making fine, like it's for grating citrus peel and stuff like that, or just making fine gratings. I don't have a box grater, but a box grater is great. You've seen them. They're shaped, they're kind of cylindrical, but they're usually a rectangular box shape with a handle. They have different sized holes to make different size grates. So if you're grating carrot, you might want that to be different size from lemon zest or something like that. So a box grater is a really good way to get multiple sizes, and I would recommend a nice sturdy box grater. But I don't have one actually, but I have multiple, you know, food graters and rasps, so that's what I use instead. You're gonna need a measuring cup. Even if you're making a box of like rice pilaf, it's gonna tell you need to measure out water. So a measuring cup is important. And then let's get to knives. I picked the 3 basic knives that you wanna start with. And buy the best knife you can afford, but know that knives can be very expensive. But when you buy a good one, it can last you a lifetime and beyond. So this is a nice knife. This is a chef's knife, and you want to have a chef's knife for basic chopping, all right? When you get a knife, if you're going to invest some money, just make sure that the blade goes into, or the tang goes into the handle. This is the tang, which you can see that metal line there. That's because this is one solid piece of metal with the handles, because you don't want one that's just screwed on, it'll break off. This is something that's nice, like if people ask you what you want for a gift for Christmas and your parents have asked you, what would you like for Christmas? A good chef knife would be a nice thing because it's a little pricier. A serrated knife, like a bread knife, is really nice for, obviously for slicing breads, bagels, biscuits, anything like that. It's also handy for things like tomatoes and stuff that's just a little tougher to slice with a knife, especially if you have a dull knife. So get a serrated knife. And by serrated, I mean that it's got a wavy edge, has a lot of bite to it. And then this is a paring knife. And a paring knife is handy just for when you want to cut little small things or cut out bad pieces of the fruit or vegetable. That's a paring knife. And you're going to need a honing steel if you want to keep your knives sharp. It doesn't work for a serrated knife. You don't use a honing steel for a serrated knife, but you would have to have a professional knife sharpener do that. I don't even know how to do it, but they stay sharp a long time, the serrated knives. But a regular blade on a knife like this needs to be sharpened periodically. And so you're going to want to have a steel so that you can sharpen the edges over time as they become dull. So those are the 16 essential kitchen utensils that you need to cook up a storm in your kitchen, and just gather them here and there. I've gotten so many of my things at yard sales and stuff, and they're just fine. So I hope you found that helpful. Give me two thumbs up, and and like my video, and I hope I see you back here on You've Got This.